Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Fruition Consulting's Diary of a CIO podcast. I am delighted to welcome our guest this morning, Sudhish Mohan. Good morning, Sudhish.
Good morning, Sarah.
Thank you for joining us. As always, I'll do a very quick intro to Sudhish so our listeners and watchers know who you are. So Sudhish has recently rejoined TransUnion to take on the role of UK and European CIO, having previously held roles for TransUnion, including CIO and COO for their African business. Sudhish has over 20 years experience working for global organizations, including Old Mutual, Microsoft, and Anglo American. He began his career in South Africa, working in technology over 22 years ago, when you joined Oracle on their academy program. Sudhish is born and educated in South Africa, where he lived until the beginning of this year, when he made the move over to the UK with his family. And outside of work, Sudhish's main interests are yoga, and he also enjoys boxing and Muay Thai, subject to finding a suitable gym over here. So hopefully that's a fairly reflective introduction, Sudhish.
It is perfect. Thank you.
Excellent. So we'll start delving in with some questions straight away. The first question I always ask, and I ask everyone the same question, so it's a really good starting point. At what point did you realise you wanted to be a CTO, and what was the most significant risk you took to achieve that goal?
I think I realised it quite early in my career. I guess, firstly, I have always been very focused on my career. And when I realized that to reach the pinnacle of my career, one needs to be a CIO, CTO, I think, I must have been about 27 or 28 years old when I realized that that is what I wanted to do. And then I started to position myself for different types of opportunities in order to achieve that goal. What is the biggest risk that I ever took? I left a really cushy job to go and become a CIO in a much smaller company for lesser money, but I knew that it will pay off in the long term. I think it was a gamble at that point in time. It did pay for me. Doesn't always do that, but it did pay off for me.
Excellent. So maybe a step backwards financially to take 10 steps forward from a progression and personal and professional development perspective.
Yeah, I mean, you always need to own your own development, right? I think we live in a world where people think organizations are going to develop you. Yes, and they do that to a point, but own your own development. If I waited for the organization that I was in to make me a CIO or CTO, probably never would have happened. And so I set a time box for myself. At that point in time, I left to do something different. Like I said, it paid off.
Excellent. Very wise words about owning your own development. I think that's a really important lesson for people to take. And what motivated you in those early days when you started your career at Oracle to pursue a career in technology, being in South Africa and I guess limited opportunities in that space?
So a few things. It was back in the early days. It was certainly a new and a burgeoning industry in South Africa, where we could see opportunity coming down the line. Obviously, having access to TV makes you see all of the stuff that's happening abroad and all these super exciting companies. And just the nature of the work, very curiosity driven. No one knew the answers. You'll need to figure it out. These new, mostly at the time, American organizations moving to South Africa to get this technology deployed, services sold, etc. That was super exciting, and so we wanted to be part of that career. And I say we as part of a cohort of people that got into the Oracle Academy program. At the time as well, Nelson Mandela was released in South Africa, and it was a new country, a new democracy, and so hope and opportunity were all over the place. And being in such a industry, having the ability to move to the great city of Johannesburg from where I grew up in a city called Durban, it was just super exciting to be in the heart of South Africa, the heart of the economy. And so those things just drove me in the industry. And should I say, one thing led to another, and I just became part of an industry that was super exciting.
What an incredible story. Have you kind of kept in touch with some of your peers that were on that program with you? Have you kind of tracked their success?
In the majority, yes. But my career has been built on having an exceptional network. So I've kept contact with people from the time I started my career all the way to today. Whichever job I've had, whichever company I've worked in, wherever I've traveled in the world, I've built a network of people around me that I strive very hard to keep together. Now, that's not always easy. It can be a challenge, but I think I've done personally a phenomenal job of making sure that my network stays intact. So yeah, definitely keep in contact with everyone, understand where people's careers are, catch up with people, coach people, mentor people. It really, really gives me satisfaction to see other people improve and to see other people grow. But also it helps me learn new things every single day. I'm an old dog now, I always say. Keep learning.
An old dog that can still learn new tricks though, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's quite interesting because when you reach a certain point in your career, look, it's demanding being in any C-level role in an organization, isn't it? But still making time to invest in your personal and professional network is really important. It's quite often something that gets left behind. How do you balance other aspects of kind of professional and your personal situation with family, etc.?
I think there's I struggle with the word balance, to be honest. I think you get to a certain level in your life where balance is always a challenge, right? I always say to people that you can get to a certain level in your job and you can have balance, but the potential of you exceeding or being exceptional would not be great, right? But I do believe that in certain careers, especially entrepreneurial stints, if you look at the Elon Musk, Sam Altman, Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, there's very little work-life balance until you reach a certain stage. Now, I think I've been fortunate in that I have had stints of large programs, massive transformations in businesses where I've gone through periods of no work-life balance, but later on, I have balanced that off quite effectively. I think in the moment, it's quite difficult to do a work-life balance thing, but I think over a period of time, you can smooth those things out. Now, spending time with myself is really important. Understanding myself is most important. Having an opportunity to reflect every single day on whether I've done something of value, or I could just be busy and add no value whatsoever, bad, we call it. That's really important. Spending time with my wife and kids at dinner every single day is critically important to me. I have dinner with my family every single day. And then obviously on the weekends, there's time for kids, sports, etc., etc. Not always possible with the types of jobs we have, but certainly strive towards doing that is what I do.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, taking that opportunity when you've finished a huge transformation or gone live with a major program of work, using that time to reflect and taking that time out. I love what you said about investing in you and taking that time to reflect and think about, have you added value today, this week, etc. It's very easy to neglect yourself, and particularly when you've got a busy life. Is that what some of your hobbies are about? Does yoga give you that time to kind of switch off and have that reflection, or the opposite?
100%. 100%. I think the dopamine rush from Muay Thai and boxing and the relaxation and the calm of having to focus in yoga helps me do that. I think the thing about reflecting is we have such busy lives, we have such busy jobs. We are unable to plan the next 3 to 6 months. And my ability, which by the way, I was never good at. I started this a couple of years ago, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
to reflect, take time to myself to figure out, ask deliberate questions about myself is something very new. And I've literally seen a change in myself, and people have seen a change in me. So I definitely think it works. I have a lot to learn, a lot more runway to get through to become what I want to be. But I certainly believe I'm on the right path to doing that. So those things help.
Amazing. And has there been any kind of key person or people that have been really influential on your career? And in what ways have they inspired you?
There's many people, many. So I did a presentation to the finance team, and I was speaking to them about Nelson Mandela was the first. Like there's a saying, there's a saying that he had that it always seems impossible until it's done. And that was the end of apartheid in South Africa after 60 or 70 years of apartheid. And that ended, right? Ended largely peacefully in South Africa. So he's been a fantastic inspiration for what one could achieve in life. The second thing is a few of my ex-bosses. My CIO at Anglo American, Mike Bowden, fantastic leader that's taught me about work ethic, but also making sure that I thought things through correctly. He taught me how to think. So if that's it, how to think and how to learn is quite an important thing. We grow up with a way of thinking about stuff because that's what we are. We're human beings, we're social beings. We learn about ourselves and we carry on with our lives. But what we don't realize is that we can change the way we think about stuff. We can actually deliberately learn to learn in a different way. And that's what my ex-boss, Mike, taught me a lot about myself. And what's fantastic about Mike is I left Anglo American in 2013, I think 2013. And up until today, we are still friends. We still speak on a almost daily basis.
Really?
I've got to share some wine with him recently. He's still a fantastic human being. And I love that about mentors who continue through your life stages, no matter where you are in your life, being a young gun, trying to make these large things work, moving to a CIO type job, moving countries, having family. All of these things are things that mentors guide you through. And Mike has been such a fantastic person. So yeah, there are many others, many others.
And I can imagine that is a mutual feeling from Mike as well, for that relationship to have stood the test of time. And like you said, moving countries and through families and changes in jobs and all that kind of stuff. So do you perform the kind of mentoring role for anybody yourself, either internally or externally?
It's all external at the moment, but yeah, many. There are many people that I've given opportunities to back in South Africa about, people getting into engineering, people into service management who didn't have backgrounds in those things, because I believe all of us have the ability to learn. It's your work ethic and what you want to put in that makes us what we are. It's not the skill that you come in with. Skills would be forgotten, as things evolve in the industry because things change so fast. You need the ability to change. It's your mindset. And I've given lots of people opportunities, and I coach a lot of people, mentor a lot of people. For me, it's about giving back to the industry that gave me so much. And so I do that on a regular basis.
Amazing. Let's talk a little bit about South Africa, because I can imagine the cultural differences are huge. We know that South Africa has high unemployment and one of the highest unemployment rates globally, which contributes to kind of, I guess, inequality and poverty there. So I know it's a tough place to work and progress. What are the key cultural differences that you've experienced working as a CIO in the UK over the last 6 months compared with South Africa? And how are you navigating those differences?
So, look, it has been very challenging. I think, firstly, you call out whatever you said about South Africa is correct. I do believe the narrative in UK media is a little different to what the reality is on the ground.
Right.
Somewhat different, let me say that politely. there's certainly the challenge of diversity. There's certainly the challenge of the history of the country and those sorts of things. I think that there is a much more deliberate environment in South Africa to be inclusive. We have things like triple BEE in the country, Black Economic Empowerment. And when we talk about diversity in South Africa, it's diversity across color as well as male, female, and however you identify.
Mhm.
So I do think there are structures that help us or make us do the right thing in that country.
Right.
I think from a work ethic perspective, I think work ethic is very different. I think in South Africa, you'll find that there is no state benefit. So you really, really struggle if you are unemployed. And so people
Okay.
do work and jobs much more. Whereas
Right.
in the UK, given the nature of the country and the benefits offered by the state on the social welfare structure, I do think people here tend to balance out work a lot more with lifestyle, whereas in South Africa, I think it's a little different.
Right.
That's the question.
And I can imagine there's some huge amount of positives and changes that you're going to bring to your new role at TU that you've learned to be working in a very different culture and country. And can you share some of the things that you're hoping to, not necessarily at a strategic level, but from a cultural perspective that you're going to how you're going to make a positive impact?
Yeah, I think, the nature of how we work in South Africa is, so first let me just say I'm fourth generation South African. So I am as South African as they get. And the nature and style at which we work is very direct. I think in the UK, there's not many direct conversations, certainly in our business. I think that people tend to work in silos a lot in our organization currently. And I'm trying to figure out how do I make sure that I balance off the culture or the positives of the culture that I bring with the positives of what exists in the UK to make sure that people speak up more, we are more transparent, people can collaborate better. If that happens, people talk to challenges versus keeping the stiff English, upper lip, as you guys.
I don't know what you're talking about.
All within the context of making people from the organization feel comfortable as well, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out that balance. I think it's a challenge. There are many missteps that I make. There are many missteps that I don't understand the cultural nuances. But somebody bought me a book the other day, How to Be a Brit, and I'm figuring out how to navigate the landscape more effectively. But I do believe that we lack collaboration across the organization. So while there's collaboration in functions, I think across the organization and in other departments, we lack, right? And I think the role of the CIO is quite unique because the CIO gets a helicopter view of what's happening in the entire organization because everyone wants something from technology. So you can see. And I think there's an ability to change that dynamic. The other challenge that we have culturally in our organization is that the CIO organization, we find ourselves to be very inward focused. We are back office function. And I'm trying to change that culture that we are a customer focused function.
Okay.
And that we are spending more time with our customers out in the market, understanding what are their challenges, what are they building, what are they grappling with. And what you'll find in the financial services industry is that in the majority, we all have the same problems. We all have legacy systems. We're all dealing with systems that are falling over. We are all dealing with talent shortages. We are all dealing with where do we put our budget. And we are all dealing with someone at our board saying, what are you doing with artificial intelligence or digital? Two buzzwords that exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I guess my next question actually leads on quite nicely. So thinking about the rapid pace of digital transformation artificial intelligence, automation. How do you see your role changing? The kind of traditional CIO role is going to look very different in 10 years' time. What do you believe are going to be the key changes that we'll see?
So from where it's evolved to where we are now, I've always worked in organizations where I think technology was basically you could keeping the lights on, right? And CIOs didn't have a seat at the board. In the last few years, you'll see that has changed dramatically. Now, there is a translation effort that exists between what is happening in the market versus what you need to be sharing with the board versus the exco in the organization. And there's a translation back into the technical organization to make that stuff happen. So I think the first thing is making sure that you are a collaborator and a translator of what is happening in the world, right? Because there's a lot of hype. Hype has been around, let me be clear, for the last 20 or 30 years. There's always a new hype. Someone is trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
So ability to distill what is real and what is not, I think, is a critical part of that translation effort between the upward echelons in the organization and the lower echelons in the organization. So that's critical. Where is it going? I think that with the way technology is transforming businesses, our ability to now use that technology to translate or to transform our business functions for it to be a truly transformative culture or truly transformative to the way we work is quite critical, because that starts to, you start talking about automation, you're talking about digital, you're talking about AI. That also means the people that we have need to start focusing on other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we start translating our people to do, or teaching them to start doing higher order work in the organization? So you need to become all of those things that I've just mentioned and become a facilitator of a learning organization so that people can take advantage of what is coming down the line. That's how I see the role transforming over the next few years. There's just a lot of noise, distilling that, creating the clarity, and building on that, and making sure that you're taking people along the journey. Because the one thing that's been consistent in all our journeys of technology is people. If there are no people, nothing else happens. And I don't care what AI says about replacing people and whatever. And that's maybe in 50 or 100 years. It is what it is, right? But today, I think your people, their culture, how they think about stuff, how they learn the new things that are coming down, and how they apply that back in the organization is critical to successful companies.
Yeah. I was reading at the weekend actually about talking about, because everyone's talking about the investment in AI. But what about the investment in humans, human intelligence, and how are we going to develop our people to make sure that, they're where they need to be, and like you said, in that transformative state that we all need to be in to be able to deal with these technology changes.
Yeah. There's sorry to interrupt. There's a lovely saying somebody did on LinkedIn where this lady says that I want the AI to do my washing and cleaning, I can focus on the art and that sort of stuff. I don't want it to be the other way around. Where we're going today, the AI is doing all of this amazing art, and we are doing the washing and cleaning and whatever else that needs to happen.
Yeah, I've seen it. I really like it as well. It's really interesting. And so do you think the CIO role will be much more transformationally focused?
Yeah.
And almost, do you think the title will change? Do you think it will always be Chief Information or Chief Technology, or do you think it will become a transformational role in its kind of definition as well as what people are doing on the ground?
Definitely the latter. I think, the way the role will evolve, it will just be transformational in nature, given the speed which things are changing in the market. I think I've gone through CIO, CTO, CDO, Chief AI Officer, Chief Innovation Officer, always the CIO. I think the CIO remit will grow. I think inherent in the role will be transformation.
Yeah. And then I guess taking it back a little bit, you talked about the hype, and particularly in technology, there's always something new that's coming, and being able to, I guess, prioritize what's important to look at and what isn't. What are your top 3 priorities as a CIO over the next 12 months?
So I think, what's really important is, at the end of the day, all of these technologies require a foundation to be built. Now, real or not, when you're doing AI, you need proper data. If you're doing cloud, you need proper foundations. If you're doing cloud, you need to make sure your people are skilled. So there's a lot of foundational things that need to be put in place, where I think it is mostly ignored for the super exciting things. Because when you talk about AI, people get super excited about an algorithm, but actually, if your data is poor, you just get poor AI, right?
Yeah.
And so my priorities over the next 2 years, I think, is our cloud journey on AWS, making sure the foundations are built effectively, making sure that our data from start to end in the system is good. It's the veracity and the velocity of the data that flows through the environment is critical. If we get those things right, I believe foundationally we would have built the right things for the organization in order for them to scale very effectively, right? So making sure foundations are in place, making sure our cloud journey is delivered, and make sure the data that's going through the pipes is of an excellent quality. Those are the things I want to get right. If I did that, I think I would have achieved a lot in the next 2 years. So nothing. I'm not deploying any artificial intelligence to be running around here.
No. But you're getting ready for making sure the business is fully prepared for whatever tech transformational projects or programs you need to go through.
Yeah, I look. Everyone thinks doing these things is simple, and you're just going to plug into the cloud and stuff is going to work. Nope. But if we did these foundational things correctly, which is the real grunt work, I think the payoff is going to be incredible after this. Incredible.
Yeah. And how do you kind of take your teams on that transformational journey with you? How do you keep them motivated and interested when it is, like you said, a lot of it is the grunt work, it's the foundations that need laying before you can do some exciting things?
Yeah, the one thing that I think I've done quite effectively in my career, but maybe not so effective anymore, given where we are with some of the work that we are doing. I think storytelling is quite critical. Talking to the teams about what is the art of the possible and how can we be better, I think is exceptionally. It is a superpower to have in the world today. You get caught up in your current day activity and figuring out the problem that you have. And then when you look at companies out there, you think, wow, those companies have done these things. And you think that's like really simple. But when you get into the nuts and bolts of it, they've gone through a journey to get there. So talking to that story, talking to the challenges of how those things were done, I think lends credibility to what we can achieve and gives people inspiration of what they can be. I think I've done mostly a pretty good job in my career. I'm struggling a bit now. Got to get better at it.
I'm sure you're not. You speak so passionately about what you do and what you want to do, but on a really human level. So it makes it relatable. Just me listening to you, I think I can imagine that helps things be more well received. Thinking about some of the things and bringing the people on the journey, what are the kind of concerns or issues that keep you up at night as a CIO, particularly in present day?
It's a challenging market that we are in the UK. Things that worry me in TransUnion at the moment, as in my current role, there are many people who are looking to do the next best exciting thing because that's what's happening in the market.
Yeah.
The attrition level is quite high of people going to do exciting things. And I got to get better at making sure that I can sell our vision and strategy better than what we are currently doing. So I think that's one. I think the second part is finding people who can think differently, who come with new ideas and new ways of doing things that disrupts the way we think about things today. Like I'm super excited to have people criticize, and I use the word criticize me, say that's wrong. Let's figure out a better way of doing it. Because in that process of challenging each other, I learn a few things. And maybe I'll buy into what you are doing, and maybe you'll buy into what I'm doing, right? But at the end of the day, we both come out stronger for it as the organization. That's something culturally we need to change in here. And that keeps me up at night, that if I say something, it's not the gospel, it's because I've just said it, right? So we need to figure out if I'm right and test whether I'm right. And I think getting that done with the right people is quite a bit of a challenge. I also have a new management team, mostly new management team, and getting them into a way of work as how we work together as a leadership team for the benefit of everyone. People tend to work in their own silos for the benefit of themselves.
Right.
Leadership in my team is joint leadership. We succeed together and we fail together. And creating that culture is not that easy. Those things keep me up at night.
Right. But obviously, that's something you've done numerous times before. I guess coming into a new organisation where the British population don't always like to have those direct conversations that, you know, are so needed and are so beneficial, particularly if they're channeled in the right way. How do you kind of encourage that? I guess to encourage people to criticize you or be constructive with what their thoughts are.
I say it in every meeting, actually, and I give the positive and the negative. I say, I've said this, I haven't really thought about this. Here are the positives, here are the negatives. What do you think? Can you give me your thought, right? Let's figure out from all the pros and cons, we don't have the answers. Let's figure out, there's going to be some risk here, but let's take a decision as a team and go with that, right? Here's what I see. I see this as a problem. I see that being positive. Let's figure out if we can make this work together. And where I got it from, just so I'm clear, in my previous job, I built a digital bank. I built it in 18 months in South Africa. It was the most incredible thing I've ever done. Lots of late nights, weekends, whatever. But what was fascinating was the CEO of the bank, when he met me, he was like, I need you to come help me build this bank. And I was, the guy's name was Rolf. And I was like, Rolf, I've never built a bank. He's like, nobody has built a bank like this, right? What I want is someone who is curious. What I want is someone who can question the norms. What I want is someone who can collaborate, break stuff, fix stuff, see the pros and cons. That's what I want in the team. I don't want someone who can build a bank. There's a million of them over here, right? And so I try to bring that mindset of having built something literally from a PowerPoint presentation in 18 months, building a bank from that, not knowing the answers every single day. You don't know the answers. So as a leader, when people look to you like, what is the answer? I'm like, I have no idea, right? But here's what we figure out, right? That's about being vulnerable. That's about being emotionally connected, which I think leaders struggle with, and maybe some parts of my organization struggle with. I don't have the answer, but here's what I think, positive, negative, come back to me. Let's figure out how we make this work. I think that's the culture that I'm trying to bring in.
Yeah.
Whether it'll work. Early days.
I mean, I think it's really refreshing, and I think that there's going to be some huge positive impacts that you're going to make. For you personally, what's the most rewarding aspect of your role as a CIO?
There's two things, right? And I don't think it's being a CIO, because I've been in areas where I was not happy. I think it's the type of work that you do. Title really means nothing. Mm-hmm. When I go to bed on a Sunday or on a Sunday evening, my wife used to always say to me, "Why are you so excited to go to work tomorrow morning?" Right? Something, do something amazing. I've got like an amazing thing, do something, right? That's something that really stimulates me, and I try to bring that to the office to say, we're going to do something amazing, right? No matter what, we're going to do something amazing. I think that is super exciting for me, and having to lead a team of people to do that makes me really, really satisfied, right? The second thing is, I think in every job, no matter what job you do, growing people, like I mentioned at the beginning, giving people an opportunity, see them grow, put them into roles that make them uncomfortable, but see them challenge themselves and grow, and then come out on the other side saying, damn, thank you, Sudhish, that was a great idea, right? You did this for me. There is no amount of money that can give you that level of satisfaction. It's literally a high. And I love doing that. That's what I love about my job. Growing people, doing exciting things. Or as I say, get shit done. You can edit that if you want.
No, I like that. Getting shit done. Do you think that comes from, because your old boss from Anglo American very much played that role in your career? Do you think kind of you felt the real benefit of how he's helped you develop and kind of giving you opportunities and helping you get shit done? That's kind of giving you that, I guess, impetus to share the same with other people. Or do you think that comes from you as a human being?
No, it's Mike.
Right.
When Mike gave me my first job in South Africa, it was a global job to run SAP for the company. I'd never done it. And I was like, Mike, I can't do this job. And he's like, no, you can. You have the attitude. That's what I'm looking for, right? So yes, there are many other people who have the attitude, but maybe not the relationship that I had with my ex-boss. And I think that's like really, really important, is having the right attitude. But it comes from, it's just something that's really deep in you. So it's Mike and others that I think I've been at the right place at the right time. I've had luck and I've had opportunity. All of those things come together to make me what I am. I've been very fortunate like that. And I always say to people, I'm not brilliant, I'm not amazing. I've also had luck, and I'm trying to change other people's luck to give them that opportunity that many other people don't get. That's what I'm doing. And if I take it back to just our South African roots, and culturally, you spoke about the country and where we were under apartheid and where we got to. It's all about opportunity. There were many people in our country, millions, in fact, they were never given opportunity to be better than what they currently were. That's including my own father, family, friends, whatever, right? And I've seen the power of when I got opportunity to leave, move out of home, live in Johannesburg, what that has done for me and my family versus people who never got the opportunity, never had the exposure, and where they are in life today. And there's something to be said for that part of my life, as well as the people that I've met along that journey. And it back to the point of network, keeping in contact, growing yourself. All of these things culminate into making me the person that I am today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying about luck and opportunities, but I think taking you back to what you said at the beginning about owning your own growth and development, lots of people have the same opportunities and luck and don't necessarily own their own development. They're reliant upon their company to develop them themselves. That's something that must come from kind of your DNA and your internal psyche to make you do that and have that attitude.
Yeah, look, I think I'm gonna go back to boxing. There's never, so there's no world title holder in heavyweight boxing that has ever been rich. So no rich person has ever become a world champion. And why is that the case? Because when you are poor, you are hungry. You have to own your growth. You have to train hard. And when you listen to Mike Tyson and some of the greats around the world, they all came from poverty, right? And poverty, where I grew up, I wouldn't say extreme poverty, but at the lower echelons of society, you own your development. You own if you want to grow, it's left to you to be successful. And I think part of it is just comes from that. So that's the environment that you're in. The doggy dog world, they say. So you got to figure out how you're going to get up there. I think I have done it. You're right.
Just off changing the topic slightly. As a CIO, with the amount of innovation and new technology and trends in the industry, how do you keep on top of things? How do you keep current? And how do you wheedle through what you need to research and not understand and things that you park?
I'm going to
That's a
frustrate
lot.
employees if they hear this, because they're always amazed that I'll send them an article and say, I've read this, can you go research it? So I spend a large amount of my time networking, going to events to try and figure out what is the latest and greatest out there, not because I want to implement it, but to see where things are going. So that's one. I'm super well read. There are books, and there are websites, and there are Substack, for example. I stay part of those types of communities, and I'm subscribed to a few of the leaders, and I make sure that I go through that information on a virtually daily basis.
Right.
Try and figure out what's happening in the industry. That's how I keep ahead of stuff, right? Largely. I don't watch any TV. So Netflix is something that I've got a subscription, but I don't use it. I don't watch any movies. I spend my time on research on YouTube, for example. Mm-hmm. Last time I was learning about how to build your own satellite. So not that I want to build a satellite, I'm just because so I spend a large amount of my time learning about everything that's happening around you. And if you think about Elon Musk and his way of learning, he talks, so him and Feynman was a physicist. They talk about foundations. If you understand the foundations and build yourself up, your ability to then learn things faster becomes easier because you know the foundations. I spend a large amount of my time figuring out how to learn those things. And I think that keeps me ahead of many people around me, right? But it keeps me excited and happy that I'm learning something new. I'm also registered for an inordinate amount of courses on Coursera that I never complete. Never complete, right? But I register, I pay, and I forget about it. I just don't have time. I do try every now and then to get through one or two, but I've been doing a terrible job of
it. You've talked a lot about the value of your network. Obviously, you're new to the UK. You're working for a global business still. How are you going to build your network here? Is it important to do that?
Super important to do that. So the first thing is making sure I build my network internally in the organization. Because as you know, to get large transformations going, it's not an IT thing. It's not a my department leadership thing. It is an organizational wide thing. So making sure I'm meeting with stakeholders locally, making sure I'm meeting with stakeholders globally to share the vision and to get their views of what will work and what wouldn't work. So I do that quite effectively, I think. I am fortunate in that I'm ex-TransUnion, in that I do have a network in the company, and I know people all over the world. So I could definitely. So I think that's a large part of the role. Second challenge is leads networking is quite difficult here. I found
Really?
I've really struggled to find where things happen, where the events are, and that sort of thing. I do live closer to London, so I'm finding all of these opportunities where CIOs from banks, from other data organizations, we try to meet more regularly, and I make a concerted effort to be in the City of London to meet people. There are always events to catch up, learn about people, and start to build that network here. It's critical for my development as a person and for my career in the UK. And by the way, I've been saying that to my leadership team as well, that they are very internally focused. I want to start seeing them at networking events. I want to see them writing articles. I want to see them thought leadership articles. I want to see them contributing to journals, because that's what I want for the function, because I think it's a good thing for TransUnion. But for as an individual, you should be doing that for yourself. It makes you better. So I've been pushing very hard on my leadership team to do the same thing. And I'm hoping that cascades through the organization.
Yeah. So coming on to my last question, and Sudhish, this is it's not actually my question, and this is a question that was left from our previous guest. And he asked, what's the most significant lesson that you've learnt as a technology leader, good or bad? And what did you change after you'd had that experience?
My most significant change as a technology leader. I joined Microsoft in 2020, I think, at the end of 2020. And when I joined Microsoft, I realized very quickly that so everyone talks about being your authentic self. Being your authentic self is the way of the future. And when I got into Microsoft, the big shiny behemoth from the outside, when I got into the organization, I learned a lot about myself, what I enjoy, what I don't enjoy as an individual, as a human being, what I wanted to do. And I found that I couldn't stay. I stayed for 6 months and I left the organization. So I stayed for 6 months and 3 months was my resignation period. So what is the most important lesson? So I think don't chase after the big shiny stuff. Go where you have purpose. And that's not about technology, it's about anything you do in life. Go where you can add value as a human being. Go where you can make a difference to other people's lives. And if there's anything that I would leave for the next person, or my view is that do live your authentic self, do something with purpose, help other people be successful. There is no better thing to do in your life and in your career.
Amazing. I wish I had one of those clapper boards that they have on the movies to say cut, because I think that's just been the perfect end to our chat today. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, Sudhish. It's been a really enjoyable and interesting conversation, and I'm going to go away and actually I always watch this back so I can share on social some of the key takeaways, but I'm just going to reflect a little bit before I do that, because you've given me some really insightful things to think about of how I want to take things moving forward. So thank you very much for that on a personal note.